Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I'm Frank Mills, and we have another great show for you today. Armin and I will be talking about knowing the signs and symptoms that you have or are overtrained, and how much time you should allow for your last meal before you go to bed. So, a lot of great information today. That being said, Armin, how's it going today?
Going great, Frank. Just getting ready for New Year's here. It's that last week, so just getting things caught up as best I can and getting fired up for what the goals are going to be for New Year's. Probably the same for you, or
Absolutely. I am ready for the New Year's. Hopefully, everybody had a great holiday, got a lot of NSP supplements and protein powder under their tree. And, we can get the show started. Armin, when you tried to come up with content for the show, we get a lot of feedback from the audience. You come up with a lot of creative stuff too from your experience and things you went through.
right.
But knowing the signs and symptoms that you're overtrained, I thought was really great. So, what can you say are the signs and symptoms of overtraining, as Vince would call it, overtonus?
Yeah, that's the term he used.
Uh-huh.
The thing that's interesting is there's been people, professional bodybuilders that they say that's a myth.
Right,
There's
right.
no such thing as overtraining. I mean, they were basing it on guys in prison that, they trained every day
Mm-hmm.
and they still got results. But that's not a fair statement, even when you make that statement, because all they do is sit around, sleep, and eat.
Right,
Well,
right.
yeah, you're not going to get overtrained with that. You got so much recovery time. How would you get overtrained? So I
Mm-hmm.
get that. And then these other guys are on, a bunch of gear, as they call it. So I'm going to say, and what Vince said early on, it exists. So overtraining does exist. So if somebody says it's a myth, uh, it's up to you to decide if you want to agree or not agree. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's not a myth from personal experience. So, but getting back at it, some of your first symptoms is going to be, loss of desire to even train. You're just like, God, I just can't even imagine going in and
Mm-hmm.
hitting it today. Lack of energy. You just don't have the zip. You're dragging. You don't feel like doing the stuff. And then when you do train, your strength's not going to be good. I mean, these are pretty obvious things that your body hasn't recovered. So I don't know why
Mm-hmm.
people can say they're a myth. And it has nothing to do with motivation as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, Another one would be, loss of a pump when you're training. If you're training and you're not getting that pump, then your body's not in a good state. It's either nutrient deficient, it needs some more sleep. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen there.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually what happens with that is you don't get any results, you get no gains. So then now you're starting to wonder, well, what the hell? And then the one that I noticed a lot is, during when I'm working, is my fatigue is just getting worse and worse.
Hmm.
So you don't have that zip in your day and want to get stuff done. You're just dealing with the fatigue all the time.
Right,
And the one
right.
that's the most important is you're not sleeping well. If you're not sleeping well, you are definitely overtrained. And I've had that happen too. And I never understood why I wouldn't sleep well. But then when I cut the training back, did some adjustments, felt a big difference.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of different ways to see that you are overtraining. Of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
first thing people are going to ask you is, how in the heck do you prevent this? Because we don't want this to happen.
So that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of approaches you can take. First and foremost, you got to watch how much volume you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
because the guys that are doing a lot of volume, if you're training too long, then your body's not going to get that recovery. Or if you're not getting enough rest in between your training days, for those muscle groups that are not responding, um, it's not going to be there when you need it. So, like one of the things
Mm-hmm.
I felt helped with me a lot to better understand what was working and not working is tracking what I'm doing in my workouts. So whether it's on a notebook pad or
Mm-hmm.
uh, doing a spreadsheet. Now I use an app because it's all recorded and I can see all my results. I don't have to write anything down. I just punch it in and it's there for me to refer to. So I prefer an app for me
Okay.
to measure progress and to make sure that, because if I have a week and I'm not doing as well and my reps are down for that same exercise, and I've been doing it for the last few weeks and it's not progressing,
Hmm.
something's probably up. So that's when you got to start looking back at what happened and what you're doing. Then you got to track how long your training sessions are. Again, I think the sweet spot to me, and this is what Vince would say, is 45 minutes or less. You should be able to pretty well get a stamp of approval on knocking your muscles out in that
Hmm.
45-minute window. And that can mean just training one muscle group if you're pretty advanced, or it can also mean training two muscle groups. I don't like doing a lot of muscle groups for me at this point because I'm trying to focus on certain areas
Hmm.
like a full body or just upper body, lower body. You're gonna you got to minimize how many different exercises you can use because you only have so much time to get it done. But I just think if you keep an eye on that, because once you start drifting to an hour and or more, you're going to actually cause cortisol levels to kick up and other stress on the body that's not beneficial. It's going to cause
Okay.
it not to recover. So, and then on top of that, you really got to focus on your nutrition to optimize your recovery. And then that's where supplements can help with performance. And then, like we mentioned before, sleep is critical.
Well, you just actually brought up nutrition. We've talked about that a lot, but in for overtraining, how important is nutrition?
Well, nutrition is just, it's like everything else. You got to have the fuel in the tank to
Hmm.
get things burning the right way, to get things to develop. And so protein is critical because you need the amino acids to help with the repair process. And then fats are critical because they help with the hormone levels. Hormones need fats to do the work, and if you don't get enough fat and protein, you're not going to get the strength recovery that you would like. And then I also like after I train to make sure I have some protein within about a 30, 45-minute window. And that'd be different people agree to disagree on that, but I found it works really well for me and my clients because you got to help boost the immune system. You got to help the recovery because you got those amino acids there because you've been breaking down muscle the whole time you train. So
Hmm.
you want that breakdown to stop after you're done, not keep going. So that's why I like to take some leucine, 5 grams of leucine right away after I'm done training. And then I have a meal or I have a protein drink uh, with some carbohydrates. Now,
Hmm.
when I say that, I want carbohydrates that are high glycemic, so I get a nice insulin spike to help boost the insulin up and push those nutrients right into the cells as quickly as possible, and then
Hmm.
drop right back down so I get back to fat burning. So
Gotcha.
that's what I like to do on the post workout. And then food intake wise, just make sure you're getting some protein every 3 to 4 hours to keep protein synthesis uh, occurring as much as you can.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Now, you did talk about sleep as well and how important it is.
Yeah.
What about sleep when it comes to overtraining?
Well, sleep is where the magic actually happens.
Hmm.
When you're training, you're breaking down the muscle. You're eating, you're trying to help the recovery. And then sleep is when the hormones kick in and they're doing all this repair process to help make the cells bigger. Okay, and then help with the recovery, getting everything ready to adapt to that stress.
Hmm.
And you start short circuiting your sleep, that's going to short circuit everything else you're doing. So that's really critical to make sure you get plenty of sleep. And typically 8 hours. If I get 8 hours of sleep for me, I'm bulletproof. I feel great the next day. I don't feel like napping or anything. But if I start cutting that short, the fatigue starts kicking in. I start getting a little drowsy. Maybe I feel like taking a nap. So that's why I like making sure the best I can to get good quality sleep at night, just to make sure I'm maximize that hormone secretion and letting everything get to its repair process to get ready for the next session.
When it comes to overtraining, Armin, you're putting a lot of stress on your body. Does stress play a role as well?
Yeah, stress can play a lot of different roles. You can have mental stress, which can
Hmm.
affect you because it does affect you. It affects you a lot. So you need to
Right.
make sure you're keeping that managed. Now, exercise typically offsets that kind of stress, the mental stress. But the other stress is too much stress on the body to where it cannot recover because it can't adapt to all of it.
Right.
So
Right.
that means training too long. That means not getting enough sleep. The things we've kind of talked about, that's going to stress out the body. And it can handle stress to a certain level and be very productive. But then there's that sweet spot of when it starts becoming non-productive.
Hmm. Interesting. So, worst case scenario, what happens if you just ignore the overtraining symptoms and you just continue on this process? You know, it's going to lead you really in a bad direction, right?
Well, I tried it.
Oh,
I
okay.
was like, I'm going to get through this. I just thought it was, you got to get used to training.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't good. I mean, I was just flat. I had no energy. I felt exhausted. I felt depleted, and and it started really getting to me. So it
Uh-huh.
started getting to me mentally, and so I was getting burnt out. So burnout would be one.
Right.
Then the other thing you got to be careful with is because you're getting so overworked that you're going to be susceptible to injury because you're trying to push yourself, and it's not there. If you get a lack of sleep and you go in and train the next day, 'cause I've already done this too, is you won't be as strong. And you're thinking, well, maybe it's something that I'm not doing. And you try to push through it. That's when things can become a problem as well. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
do sleep deprivation, go to train, you are not going to be strong. Matter of fact, if that happens to me, I just take the day off because I know it's not going to be a productive day for me if I don't get enough sleep. I don't even want
Wow.
to go down that road. So, but I'm talking about cutting it short by several hours. Now, if it's just an
Okay.
hour or so, that's not a big deal. But like if the night you had to stay up all late for something you had to do, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not training the next day. I got to take that day off. And the other thing would be if you ignore it, you're starting to look flat and smooth when you're training, and you don't see the pump, so you don't stay motivated at all. You're like, ah,
Right.
geez, I'm not getting anything out of this. So that's my experience from it.
So, when someone's working out, they're training hard. How do you know if they're just training hard or if they're overtraining?
And that's another good one. Um, So to me, your strength is always going to be a good indicator. So if the
Hmm.
weight
Okay.
feels reasonably good as it was as the time before, and you can squeeze out another rep or two, then great. Now there's always gonna be a point of diminishing returns where an exercise you can keep getting stronger and stronger and get more reps and keep adding weight, but then that's going to level off, which is
Okay.
normal. That just means your body needs some more time to adapt. So that's a good time to change up the exercise, give that
Mm-hmm.
exercise a break. You kind of maxed it out, would be one point I would make. So that's a good gauge there. Um, you're going to notice that if your endurance and strength aren't really there, that overtraining is starting to kick in. Now, if it keeps improving, that means you're still on target. You're keeping things in that sweet spot, and so you want to stick with that. Just make sure you're not again seeing anything else that's going to get in the way of that. And then you got good energy levels. Your mood is good, and you feel like training. That means you're getting it done. You're not getting overtrained.
Okay. So, what do you think you should do if you think you're overtraining or you realize that, hey, I am overtraining? What should somebody do?
All right, so the solutions I found, and you'll read about them in other places or learn about
Mm-hmm.
them in other places, but just take a week off or 3 to 4
Hmm.
days to let that central nervous system just recover, replenish the food stores that you may be depleted on, and just get that sleep. And you'll
Right.
you'll you'll feel like training again once you do that. But taking a week to 3 to 4 days off would be ideal. What I found works really well, and with anybody else I've worked with, and it's just going to
Mm-hmm.
give you a better healing process, and then you're fresh and you have a different outlook.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The one thing I thought about is the recovery time too from your workouts. You know, a lot of the folks that I'm sure that you have dealt with, they have a good workout, but they're working maybe too many muscle groups or they work out too often. It leads to this overtraining. Is there
Yeah.
a specific amount of recovery time that you would maybe suggest, or do you have some other recommendations?
Well, the textbook statement is, every 72 hours the muscle should have been recovered, but that's typically
Okay.
what they're talking about is in a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which we don't live in a perfect world. They're saying that that's what they see most commonly being effective.
Okay.
So, and another element to that would be how advanced you are. If you're just getting started, your recovery is pretty quick because you're adapting. But as you're pushing yourself using heavier weight and higher intensity, that body needs a little bit longer, in my opinion, to get back to where it's ready to go at it again.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is, some people are really caught up in making sure they train the muscle twice a week. That same muscle, just train it twice a week, and that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that can help for a while because I've done that. But at the end of the day, your body only recognizes recovery. So whether it's every 72 hours or whether it's every 5 days, that kind of thing, you have to kind of adjust your training and learn that. That's where guys get better and better, and other guys stumble. They struggle in that
Gotcha.
area. So to me, right now, I like to train the one muscle group every 7 days. I need 2 days
Mm-hmm.
of recovery. So I'm training 5 days a week, gives me 2 days of recovery. So I'm gonna hit that muscle again really hard with different movements, different intensity, once a week. Doesn't mean you
Mm-hmm.
can't do it twice a week, but
Right. Right.
if you see you're not adapting very well, then you need to give it a few more days and try it,
Mm-hmm.
see how you do.
Absolutely. Okay. So a lot of people watch and hear the show. They're probably curious on what you do to avoid this. I mean, you've already had it happen. You've already done it. So how do you stay away from overtraining?
Well, again, what I have learned to do is part of my daily routine
Mm-hmm.
is keep things pretty consistent. Your body likes to have a good routine and it can adapt to that and stay real consistent with it. So, I
Mm-hmm.
like to train at the same time as much as I can each day. I take my breaks based on how I'm feeling. So if I train 3 days in a row and I'm really, really sore and tired, I'm gonna take a day off. Sometimes though I can train 4 days in a row, then take a day off. And other times
Okay.
I only can train 2 days in a row and I take a day off. So that's where you kind of have to read your body. And that's what I do
Mm-hmm.
now. And it depends on what I did on that workout. Especially if
Right.
I'm working a weaker workout, like my legs and calves are always weaker. So I'm putting a lot of focus and intensity in that. And I'm really tired when I get done. So, the next day I may do chest, because it's a smaller muscle group compared to my legs, chest and triceps or chest by itself. And then I need to take a day off because back,
Gotcha.
I want to make sure I got good energy for my back training as an
Mm-hmm.
example. So you really got to play that out yourself, but that's what I'm doing myself. And I feel it's working really well for me. My strength's good. My energy's good. I want to train. So I got a good routine that I feel, and I can always change routine, but I got a good one that makes me feel like I'm getting where I need to be.
Absolutely. Uh, any final thoughts? Anything else when it comes to overtraining?
Yeah, again, like anything else, more is not always better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you gotta. There's a point of diminishing returns on everything. Same thing with food and anything else. Too much food, you got a problem. Okay, too much water, you got a problem. I mean, you got to find your sweet spot that works for you. A good coach can help you get there quicker, so consider that if you're struggling. But yeah, keep things in moderation and don't try to keep doing more thinking you're gonna get a better result.
Awesome information, Armin. At this point in the show, we always kind of wrap things up to go to the second segment. We take a little
Yeah.
break, but we also would like to encourage you to check out nspnutrition.com. Make sure you are stocked up for supplements to start the new year. Start the year off right. A lot of you may make some New Year's resolutions. Hey, if you're really on it, you've already got your plan in place. But
Hmm.
don't forget to check out nspnutrition.com for your supplements. And stand by for more of the NSP Nutrition Show. Armin and I will be right back.
Hey, welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I am Frank Mills. And, we were going to talk about how much time you should allow for your last meal before bed. And, I think that everybody wonders this because the old stigma that I always heard is if you eat after 8 o'clock, you're off track. It's no good, whatever. I always wondered about that. So I'm glad you're going to talk about this today. Armin, does it really matter how much time you have between having your last meal before you go to bed?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different viewpoints you're gonna get on that, but most people agree that you want to give yourself several hours, 2 to 3 hours is considered ideal. That's
Okay.
basically just to let your food digest and get into the system. But the other thing I do want to say on that is,
Mm-hmm.
your hormones, when they secrete when you go into sleep, you want to have everything ready to go into a nice deep REM sleep. Okay, so if you have too much insulin floating around your system because it's trying to process the carbohydrates and the food that you ate,
Mm-hmm.
that can be a problem competing with the receptor sites of the cells, and the hormones can't do their work as well. So you want to make sure you
Hmm.
optimize everything for your nutrition so that everything's where it needs to be. So when the hormones do their work, because they do it at night when you sleep, they also secrete when you train and when you get a little bit of sun, but the most of it's done at night. So you want to have everything ready to go. So everything's clear, and then the hormones secrete and you get on those cells, receptor sites, and start doing the work, doing the magic.
All right. So, what about this when it comes to you? I mean, what are your thoughts and your experiences on eating before bed and your timetables?
Okay, first and foremost, it is never going to be perfect at all. So you do the best you can to get
Mm-hmm.
that food ate and digested. But there are times when, it may be an hour and a half before you go to bed. But try to stay in that 2 hour window, in my opinion, is pretty ideal. Now,
Okay.
you're going to see where some people suggest 3 hours or longer, which is fine.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just saying the sweet spot that I have found has been the 2 hour window. But there are times when it's an hour and a half, so I'm hoping that everything's digested. So just
Mm-hmm.
keep that in mind. Now, what I do like to do is I do carb cycling. So the carb cycling, with that, I have a high glycemic meal, carbohydrate meal with some protein for my last meal, and again a couple hours before, so that I
Mm-hmm.
get the serotonin release, and that serotonin will convert to melatonin, and that'll make you drowsy. So that kind of preps me for a good night's sleep as well, because I get the
Mm-hmm.
melatonin flowing, I get drowsy, so I go right into a nice, good quality REM sleep, and then go from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of other viewpoints that you've looked at, you've read. Do you have some of the other viewpoints that are out there?
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, if you talk to nutritionists, and you read from them, they're going to say that they're recommending about 3 hours between your last meal and going to bed. And their
Mm-hmm.
focus on that is to make sure all the digestion has occurred. I agree with that too. It's just that,
Okay.
sometimes the 3 hour window may not work. So,
Right.
but
Right.
they also recommend it because they're trying to prevent heartburn and ingestion, and it can sometimes cause insomnia for some people. So they just they're just saying don't go to bed on a full stomach. Let the digestive system kick in and let things get going. And there are some debates that this will cause weight gain. I don't know how valid those are because they're just saying, well,
Right.
because your metabolism's slowing down, you're going to bed, you're not going to burn those calories you just ate. Well, okay, I get that, but if you're going to be doing things the next day, you need to have a good fuel
Right.
in your system to be able to handle
Right.
the next day's activity. So I think that's a little overstated. I mean, if you're just eating too much food, that's a whole nother dilemma as
Mm-hmm.
far as going to bed and stuff too. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it also depends on what time you go to bed. I mean, if it's
oh yeah,
8 o'clock, then you go to bed at 11. Some people have different schedules, so it's a
yeah.
timetable. I guess you have to calculate. But the one thing I was thinking about, hey, this is the NSP Nutrition Shows. What about supplements? I mean, do you take those before you go to bed, and do you have a timetable on those?
Yeah, so with supplements, there's different strategies on that. So I like to do any hormone precursor type of supplements where they're required to be taken on empty stomach, and they're going to be
Mm-hmm.
get in your bloodstream before you go to bed to help the hormones and stuff like that. So some supplements like the hormone optimizers, you can take that with the meal, and you take that up to 3 times a day. So it's going to be in your system. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be there when you go to sleep. So that's a different strategy there. But I'm kind of experimenting with different supplements because that's what I do. I'm trying to
Right.
see, well, is this going to help my performance? Is this going to help my recovery? things like that. So right now, like I'll take ashwagandha and I'll take astragalus, vitamin C, like about 1,000 milligrams to help with the immune system. And then Prosta Plus, 58. So I'm keeping on that prostate. So that's, use that. Then I'm experimenting with Doja agrestis, which is another supplemental herb that can help with testosterone, they say.
Hmm.
So I'm just seeing if I notice anything from that. Same thing with Tonkat Ali. So I would take those before bed unless I'm taking the alpha male, which I've been experimenting with that. So if I take the alpha male, I take that after training, so I don't worry about taking that before bed. But these are just some supplements that, if you look them up statistically, they've
Hmm.
stated that it can help testosterone levels. And I'm just trying to see, well, does it do anything or not do anything from my perspective? So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Uh, any other information you have besides what we've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, if you find yourself, here's another thing that can happen. Okay, if you're doing nutrition and supplementation and all that, if you
Hmm.
find yourself going to the bathroom several times a night, 2, 3 times a night, that could also be a sign of something. So the first step to do is just cut back on your fluids 2 hours before and see if that clears it up. Now, if it doesn't clear up, having to get up and go to the bathroom, then you may have some prostate issues starting to kick up. It may
Hmm.
start to enlarge and things like that. So you want to get tested. You have a blood test to check your prostate, or it could also be a sign of sleep apnea. And sleep apnea, that'll happen too. So you're not getting good restful sleep, which is not good. So I just want to bring that up since we're talking about going to bed and you have food and
Right,
supplements,
right.
these things going on. If you're seeing that happen, then that's what I would do just to make sure you've covered the bases, not ignore it.
Right, right. Well, a lot of great information as usual, Armin, and another great show. Sure everybody appreciates it very much.
Well, I mean, I really look forward to it every time, and look forward to it again next week. And I'm hoping guys are getting some takeaways from this that can help them. And of course, if you have other questions, we want to hear about it. So please let us know. Um, I mean, it's really important.
Absolutely. And, as always, make sure you take a look at nspnutrition.com. They have a lot of great things happening between now and New Year's, and take advantage of that. And, Armin, also, when it comes to suggestions for the show, we're
Yeah,
always looking for comments and suggestions, right?
exactly. Yeah, anything you can do to get for us to give you better feedback or other topics that are of importance to you, we'd like to know. Just leave a comment in the video, or you can email that as well. But we want to make this channel a good, effective channel, help your training, help your everyday life.
Absolutely. And if you're going to comment in the YouTube channel, that's great and effective. It's not something you want to do if you listen to the podcast. Instead, you can always, again, like
Yeah.
Armin said, shoot us an email at support@nspnutrition.com, and we will get that information as well. And, Armin, we appreciate the audience. We appreciate them watching and listening to the show. And,
Oh yeah.
we're looking forward to a whole new year of NSP nutrition shows.
Oh yeah. Just want to make it bigger and
Absolutely.
better.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess we'll see everyone next year. And thanks for joining us here on the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.